Fresh CrEd, this is Houston. You've been cleared for takeoff. Viva Fresh Expo 2024. 5 miles an hour, setting away.
Hola y bienvenidos al Fresh CrEd. I am excited to bring to you from the 2024 Viva Fresh at Houston, Texas in the beautiful Marriott Marquis, brought to you by Mr. Craig Slate, CEO and President of Sev-Rend, and joining him is his ever-faithful partner in crime, Mr. Ed Bertada. Let's go! Yo!
All right, so joining us now, our next guest is Mark Hoppenjans with Sev-Rend. Mark, thank you for being with us. Thank you for the support. Thank you for your partnership. We've been yucking it up here for a bit before starting. I feel like I've said a million words already, but there's a million more to be said probably somewhere in there. So, Mark, is this? I didn't ask if this was your first Viva show.
It is my first Viva show.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So, well, we have something definitely to talk about.
Nice.
We're just getting started. What do you think so far? I mean, it's a regional show. I'm sure you've been to large expos in the past. You've been in the business. We'll get into that here in a minute. But so far, so good?
I think a very personal show. You know, people seem very comfortable. They want to talk about business, but they also want to enjoy themselves. But I think everybody's very accessible here. Yeah. And that's what I like about shows this size. But I think they do a particularly good job here.
Yeah, I think, a mix of the industry, a mix of the format. I saw people, yesterday in the lobby. It was like a scene out of a movie. I mean, people running to each other and hugging and like so excited. There's just really great vibe. So it's a very competitive business, but there are definitely a lot of relationships. I mean, now at this point, there are folks like this guy over here that I've known for quite a number of years that
not competitive.
Admittedly, if I didn't see him for a long time, I'd probably be excited to see him, but I see him all the time.
Yeah, no, I agree, Ed. I think in produce it is competitive, but it's kind of an all boats rise thing. I think everybody wants to see everybody else do well, and there is some best practices shared and a lot of overlap. So compete on business, but at the same time, well wishes for everybody.
Yeah. Mark, you're with Sev-Rend. Can you tell us a little bit about Sev-Rend?
Sure.
What do y'all do? I mean, let's start there, and then we'll talk about some other dynamics as far as
we're based
business.
out of Southern Illinois, so the closest city would be St. Louis. We're way down in the south part of the state from Chicago. We've been there about 30 years, and the Williams family's been in packaging for over 100.
Wow.
We're kind of that boring Midwest company that doesn't have any debt on the financial side, but also very aggressive and ambitious with new materials and getting to know customers. I know, we talked about HEB and really getting in to the innards of their business and making sure we're creating value. And so we're growing. We're in Canada as well as Mexico and all over the country, shipping a little bit outside. We're growing our team also, which is fortunate to have everybody here. But I think just really wanting to grow within produce and wanting to innovate and willing to listen to customers on what they want, but at the same time, really focusing on the consumer cost component, which we both know.
Oh, yeah.
Produce is a big thing. Yeah. So,
how long have you been with them?
I've been with them a year, but I've been adjacent to them for 17. They were a customer. I'd mentioned to you that I was in corrugated prior. So they used to be just 3 blocks from where I was located with the customer. So I remember when our new building was built here at Sev-Rend, and I'm from Belleville, which is adjacent to Collinsville. So actually, when I'm back at headquarters, I stay in the house I was raised in.
Wow.
And my mother and brother still live there. So it's good. It's a good, soulful company, and we do a lot of good things.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So where are you at now?
I'm based in California, so most of our focus is within the Midwest there in Southern Illinois, but we also have a presence in Phoenix and Atlanta and Indianapolis and Northern California as well. And then I'm in the Palisades on the west side. But yeah, I mean, we're all on the road a bunch and, enjoying being in the fields and being in the packing houses.
That's the fun stuff.
Well, most of what we do is
being in the field.
No doubt. Most of our products go on automated machines. A very small percentage is hand packed. So you want to make sure that it's packing quickly and the materials are working. The operators of all the machinery are kind of our biggest advocates. We also spend a lot of time in stores. The produce managers kind of tell us, what the barometer is for our products. So
What's your biggest commodity that you guys work with?
Okay, so our biggest product line is wine glass tags and then netting and film. So if you think of a bag of onions, you think of citrus, avocados, sweet potatoes, and apples. Those are the main commodities we're dealing with. And now you'll never pick up a bag of netting again without
thinking of you.
Without having that warm feeling of the bass drum, right? But
Like a warm blanket.
that's right. We're also in pouches.
Okay.
And we do form, fill, and seal. So if you think of like a Doritos bag coming together, that actually starts in a roll and gets sealed, form, filled, and sealed.
Yeah.
And so we also provide that film, but a lot around automation and automated solutions on the consumable side.
So where do you, with the packaging, how do you see that world transition? Looks like, compostable seems to be a big thing. There's people wanting to reduce packaging. What kind of things you guys doing along those lines, or where do you see that piece part of the business going?
Yeah, I think everybody's had their moment with sustainability and trying to understand it, and that's really the biggest challenge is that sustainability is first confusing, and then what's the business case? And so, utilizing the materials we have, we are a plastics and flexible packaging company. We do have the solutions you mentioned, biodegradable, compostable, and we have different options in that space by all means. And we're very, very focused on all the retailer initiatives because ultimately the retailers are driving packaging guidelines and specs. So I think we're looking for the balance point, and as sustainable materials are integrating themselves into the packaging supply and what their behavior is end of life, what we're wanting to make sure is that the costs stay in line and that these are realistic things happening because sustainability is going to happen gradually, not suddenly, because the consumer won't pay for suddenly, and that's where that business case comes in, and so we focus on that.
Do you have a sense as to what's gaining traction? I mean, is it the compostable? Is it the biodegradable? Or is it just a sense of, recycled plastics? Where do you see, that going? Because like you said, everybody's kind of trying to participate in that sustainable space. But for your industry and where you're at, where do you feel like that maybe the future is?
Yeah, Kevin, so the immediate post-consumer recycled content is, very available. If you look at some of the main retailer guidelines for 2025, it's 20% post-consumer recycled, 15% reduction in virgin plastic, which those two cancel each other out, right?
Yeah.
You got 20%. And you have to have the narrative to be able to tell the end-of-life story on, what's the recycling rate, what's the recyclability of it, is it compostable, is it biodegradable?
Right.
So just the post-consumer recycled content and integrating that into the packaging, that's the most successful right now, and that's staying under that 3% that the consumer will absorb. It doesn't. It'll only add maybe 1 or 2%. The challenge with compostable and biodegradable and completely natural materials is two-part. Number one, they're not working as efficiently on the automation out there, and so they're slowing down packing rates. And then the second thing is they're typically 2 to 5 times more in cost.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at staying under that 3%, you can't really do that with that package. I love what I'm seeing. There's a lot of great stuff coming out of Austria and Germany. I'm a paper guy, as we talked about. We are about 12% of our total productions on the paper side, for web-based. I think that there's a lot of promise there, but it has to be done in a gradual way to where there's enough scale to where the material can get to the point where the end user can use it, or will pay for it. You were gonna rephrase that anyway, right?
Yeah.
You had some notes.
I have some notes. You guys are covering a lot of our notes.
I was going to say, you failed to send me the notes. So
well, I like keeping you on the edge of your seat.
You seem like an improv guy.
You can't just choose when to and when not be prepared. But Mark, so we're talking earlier about like who does it right, who you think does it right out there as far as from a retail perspective. Who you're working with.
Still talking about golf?
Yeah, we're back to the golf.
If you can share with us, I guess. Best practices that you admire, or I say retail chains that are particularly keyed in, or you feel like are on the cutting edge, or have been. Any examples to share with, with our listeners?
Yeah, I think you'd kind of put that in 3 different categories. We have the group of grocers that are owned out of Europe. If you think of a whole Dale Hayes, or if you think of Aldi,
They've been driving the whole thing, right?
The teams here, in a whole Dale Hayes' case, 70% of the revenue that is generated globally, even though they're out of the Netherlands, comes from the U.S. So
Say that again?
70% of the revenue for a whole Del Hayes, which is a grocery company based.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm very familiar with the company. I didn't realize 70%
comes out
of the
their
revenues.
stores.
Really?
Right.
Wow, that's amazing.
And my reference was when we talk about reusables, they started in Europe, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so they brought that's what I was referring to.
So in situations like that, then the packaging guidelines and the reporting elements, just like accounting or anything else for sustainable options, have to comply with the EU, which is a higher grade. So you have that group. Then you have the middle group, which is kind of the publicly traded groups like Walmart and Costco and others. And with SEC guidelines for sustainability, they have to kind of focus on that. So they get a little bit more aligned with carbon reporting, and then the waste reporting, which comes into ours. Okay, and then you have more of the regional and privately held, which we're familiar with. So if you look at companies like HEB, which is more regional, even Sprouts, which isn't regional but they're smaller, you just tend to have a little bit more control over their supply chain, and a little bit more community and personalized sustainability. So I think those that I mentioned, and HEB here locally certainly. They are using sustainability and circular practices to really connect with their customers. And they, for example, they have plastic reclaim, right on site, where you can bring your bags back, or you can bring any plastics into their operations that you're not sure if they're recyclable or not. And they'll go ahead and take care of it and
figure it out for you.
Figure it out for you. So, I think when you think about that chasing arrows that we talk about with recyclability and everything, I think they've probably taken a step ahead of everybody. For closing the loop, if you will, and kind of doing what they say. So
No, I talk a lot, on a kind of on that subject, but an example of closing that loop, because I think that's the key on the reusable or recyclable piece of it, right? Is you got to make it as simple as possible for the consumer, right? And kind of take that out of a chat, where they don't have to do anything, because and not only that, it's like even when people separate it at their house, what actually happens to it.
when it leaves the curb.
When it leaves the curb, it's still some question. But Nespresso, and if you're familiar with the coffee pods,
Sure.
Nespresso. So I'm an addict for the Nespressos. But they have a system which I think is genius. So the Nespresso, they do this UPS bag.
Okay.
So you get that free from them. And when you're done with your pods, then throw them in the trash, fill up the UPS, sell it, throw it in the mailbox. It goes somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it goes back to them, they get it used. But to me, it's like, I use it.
Yeah.
And I feel actually like I maybe am doing something.
Sure.
So, I don't know. But, I mean, just kind of dovetailing on what you were talking about, I think, retailers that provide those bag returns or some type of recyclability, I think it goes a long ways to actually making it effective.
No doubt. And, I think the folks that are really going to win with sustainability, not just on the packaging side, but on the retail side, they're going to use it for customer loyalty, right? They're going to identify that this aligns with their values. They want to see the data and the narrative.
Yeah.
They want to see both. They want to know that when they scan that QR code and it tells the end of life story, or it tells the story, like that was a great example with UPS and the returnables, that, okay, that's worth my dollars, right?
Yeah.
Like this is aligning with me. And, I think the younger consumer really desires to have that. They want to know that complete circle.
Yeah.
So in the commercial or sales perspective, you're dealing with retailers and suppliers or producers, both?
Right. So
Okay.
from a design perspective, so as far as selling, if you think of packing houses and farms and marketing groups that are focused within produce, those are most of our end use customers.
Okay.
We do have direct retail relationships where they come to us and they create the graphics and they create the specs and then agree to pricing, and then are sold to is still the same. So
Okay.
a retailer is never a direct customer unless they're shepherding a program for their own private label, which is a relatively small amount.
Yeah.
So curious, I've read, I've seen, since the pandemic, kind of a move from fresh produce. There's been some greater adoption in the packaging world, right? Fresh produce moving to packaging. One, do you see some sort of? I mean, I know the trends with packaged salads, and I know some of the obvious trends, but I'm just curious. Is it a business that you see actually growing with more packaging, be it bags, be it flow wrap, and that kind of stuff? Do you see that as?
It's a great question, and at the end of the day, the fruit's got to look good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And the fruit itself, in some cases, looks good, and then the packaging has to enhance that.
Right.
We've seen bulk programs, and we've seen proposed bulk programs, and they have their place, but they also have their challenges. And we've even seen paper programs where the fruit's packaged in a certain way, and we find, being in plastics, one of the best things is that it displays the fruit well. Right?
Yeah.
A pouch displays the fruit well. The netting that we were talking about with the onions, you can look right through that and you can feel it, and that really shows a lot. So to answer your question, I think that's only going to be more and more, because the branding of fruit, if you will, which we are all seeing, that is also starting to connect with the consumer. But we're in an age, different than previous, where the immediate feedback and the habits of the consumer are coming in almost real time, and we're all paying attention to it. So packaging allows you to alter that quickly, right?
Yeah.
And to stay connected to your end user.
So, I mean, and you mentioned data somewhat in what you were saying there. So I would assume, with the packaging, the data, the creation of the data is a lot more accurate than bulk produce, right? In other words, when you have to count on somebody to scan it or identify it, when it's coming through a package, you've got a quick scan, and it immediately gives you the data of what the consumer's buying, and then obviously they can follow back. Do you guys, as a company, use AI? Do you use a lot of data? Do you have any technologies that you're employing for efficiencies or for new developments or anything like that?
We're growing with it to try to stay in touch with our customer base, and really, whether you like it or not, you have to go compete in that world.
Yeah.
Because your competitors are. So we want to stay as close as possible, and we want to give our customers as much access as possible. So we have a portal system where they have complete visibility of, we're a printing company too, because of the tags and labels and all the film. So to see all their order history, to see their current orders in-house, to see ship dates. So it's a nice dashboard system, and certainly the data from the frequency of who's using that and what's happening, that's really been our focal point. But I'll tell you that we got a great team. We spent a lot of time in the field too with the produce managers, and there's the data, but just like we're talking about, there's that tribal knowledge, of Stephanie and Chelsea, who talked to us about our citrus bags and how they changed, and we use that data, because if Stephanie handles 10,000 of our bags in 2 weeks, she probably knows something about them. So I don't think it's ever going to tell the whole story on our industry. You still got to talk to each other, which thank God, because all three of us like talking, right?
So all right, a little bit about you, Mark, and we've talked about your company and what you guys do, but and we know from earlier conversation you're not a big golfer.
He's a semi-professional pickleball
That's
player.
what he's starting a pickleball. Is that a pickleball association or something you're kicking?
The
off?
American Pickleball Association of America.
Champions of pickleball. What do you do in your free time?
Sev-Rend is working for a customer event, yes.
Ah.
With 32 pickleball teams, maybe 64. So, being that we're located.
Pause. This thing's just too loud to overcome with editing. Jesus. Thanks, bro.
What are we at on time, Mason?
We're up against.
Well, we good? Yeah. So I think the produce industry has done a great job of bringing everybody together, right? And the obvious way is drinking, which you can see at all the bars, right?
Never heard of that one.
And golf, everybody knows that one, right? And then we have podcasts, which have been just
they're emerging.
A great development for our industry, and I think have a lot of viewership. I mean, it's not just that the quality's there, but the following, right?
Yeah.
And that is not easy to build. So full respect for that. I think we have good speakers at conferences. We had Bo Jackson at one, which was fantastic, and I've seen a number of others even in the past year, just really strong. But of course, the emerging space here in bringing people together is pickleball, right?
Oh boy,
yeah.
It just is. I mean, it's an addiction maybe greater than alcohol and golf. I mean, people, they put courts in their yard. I mean, they buy nets. It's it's crazy.
I'm gonna have to try
There's a
it.
discussion at our office, so we've got a garage there. So we've already been pitching the idea. We're probably going to wind up putting a pickleball net inside the
and you're going to
garage.
settle all disputes.
Everything
on
right
pickleball.
there. Yeah. So,
Well,
that's fair.
yeah,
Seems
yeah.
fair. But tell us about this event Sev-Rend's putting on.
We're just planning it right now. We're planning it for the fall, which is a good time to come to St. Louis. It's a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
In the ideation stage.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot.
Is that what that's called?
So
I think.
we want to be the produce pickleball kings.
They're exploring.
That's right.
Gotcha.
But I've got a great team that puts these things, into effect quickly. But pickleball is a great game because anybody can play it and pick it up, and people like yourself are very competitive. I can tell you don't like to lose, but I remember the first time.
That's an understatement.
the first time I played, I was watching these two 70-year-old ladies play against these two college kids who were 20, and the college kids were fit, great athletes, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And these two 70-year-old ladies just sat there, and it was 11-1. Right?
Wow.
Really?
And,
Methodically.
and you had these guys running all over like Scooby-Doo because they were athletes, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the brilliance of pickleball is you can have a lot of different tools and you can still be successful at that game. And so we're having a good time with it, and we want to grow with it. And it sounds like we're going to
All
have a
right.
team.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, exactly. You got a team for sure.
I'm intrigued now.
So Ed's got to get his game on. He's got to get.
I'll try it.
Get a little
try
bit,
anything
little bit
once.
over his hunting addiction.
Yeah.
And put a few of those things
Why there's
aside.
nothing to
I'll
get
say,
over.
Ed, as soon as you lose your first pickleball game, you'll be addicted.
Oh, I highly doubt it.
As soon as once you get pickled, you really will be addicted because you never want that to happen again.
I'm a good loser.
Oh.
Boo.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
You're a good
gosh.
liar, too.
He is. He's not a good liar. He's none of these things is he good at. He's I don't know.
I am a
self-awareness
good
lacks
loser.
there. So, I'm gonna talk to Callie when I see her again.
Callie's my wife.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, she won't tell you anything.
Oh, she won't need to tell me anything. I'll just console her.
She's the
and
51%, huh?
Yeah.
So, well, look, I think we're up against time, and it's been a great conversation. We really appreciate you guys.
I feel like it could go on forever.
It probably could most of the time. You and I could talk forever because we've
Yeah.
proven that. So,
Where are you going to be next, show-wise? Trade show.
At CPMA.
CPMA.
Yeah, I'll be in Toronto.
We got to try to do CPMA next year.
I'm in Toronto all next week.
I was gonna say that's
and
next
then
week,
I'm in
right?
Vancouver.
Oh, I know. It's not going to work for us this year.
It's a
but-
week after next. It's in Vancouver.
okay.
It's not in Vancouver too often, and I think it's a little bit smaller show when it's there.
We're shooting for Berlin next year.
Are you? I think everybody shoots for that.
Yeah. But I mean, doing this
Oh.
in Berlin.
We'll be there. So
Yeah.
All right.
We go every other year.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
Awesome.
So,
Well, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for being here. I definitely, I'm pretty confident that we'll have continued conversations. But hopefully you enjoy the show and see the value in Viva Fresh and come back with us next year. And are you exhibiting?
We are. Yeah.
Well, hey, you've already won. The waiting list is long, and I've seen it.
yeah.
So
Our marketing person, Brittany Hammock, would drive through any wall to get us a booth. So, I have no doubt that
Yeah.
she put in the work to get it done.
if you've not been to Viva Fresh, you will know that we're considered. I say we, Mark and I, our companies as allied industry. What we consider allied industry, and there are very few allied industry folks in there because it is a smaller show, and at the end of the day, we need to have plenty of product there. We have a lot of retail buyers and food service buyers here, so that's just the nature of the business.
Yeah.
Indeed.
We're excited. We're growing in the industry and investing in the right things, and very excited about my team. We've got some new players that have been great and brought new things to us, and
It's a good place to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Cool.
stay out of their way.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you again very much, and best of luck here this week, and look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in Berlin.
Kevin, Ed, thank you.
All right. Thank you.